Hello, everyone. This is Jorge Diaz, president and founder of Larry Jacob Internet Marketing, and I'm bringing you another episode of Transforming Small Business Thinking. And this week we have MaryKay Morgan as my guest. MaryKay, how are you?
Hello, I'm great. Really happy to be here, George. Thanks for inviting me.
MaryKay and I go a long way back. We've probably known each other 3, 4, probably 5 years, something like that. And we're both in the Infusionsoft community. She's an Infusionsoft certified partner, so am I. And they have come up with a product that I definitely want to highlight on this program. So if you've ever done a webinar, if you haven't, maybe you won't appreciate this, but if you've ever done a webinar, if you've studied the logistics of what it takes to do that, there's a lot that's involved. And the products that are available on the market or were available on the market before they've kind of tackled it have some limitations. We're going to be talking about those, but we're going to be getting a chance to understand, first of all, how MaryKay and why MaryKay, decided to jump into the space. And we're also going to get a demo of this thing, right, MaryKay?
Yes, we are.
So why don't we start off by you telling, as we were prepping, you were giving us a little bit of the history of the why, but I want our viewers to really understand, why is it that we needed another webinar tool?
Well, that's an excellent question. And I'm actually going to back up just one step further from that. I think most of your viewers are pretty savvy as far as the why you would even want to use a webinar in your marketing strategies. But just to really presence that webinars are an incredibly effective tool for bringing someone, qualifying a prospect, providing them with really high quality, valuable information so they begin to sense what's possible as far as the solution that you're offering through your product. And then you can provide within that framework of the webinar a really clean, high quality, what we call to action, which is inviting someone to buy, right?
Let me ask you, before we even get further, because this just brought my head, it's like, give me your definition of a webinar, because some people, they call a video a webinar, and that's not the case.
Well, actually for our purposes, it doesn't matter what format you choose for your webinar. If you are someone who is somewhat camera shy, then it can be all slides and a voiceover. If you want to mix that up with maybe an introduction on camera and then switch over to slides because the detail level of what you need to present is better presented with slide support, fantastic. If you are great on camera and really engage people well through that medium, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it all as an on-camera presentation. Okay, so really in today's world, it's varied.
But this is, because you could have, like, for example, a live webinar, which is more like a Zoom meeting like we're doing here,
yeah,
versus a pre-recorded thing, which is kind of more what we're talking about, right?
We are definitely talking about an event that you have recorded, and then you're going to offer up to prospects whenever it is that's convenient for them. And we'll get into kind of some of the specifics about that. But you're absolutely right. And the idea of an evergreen automated webinar came from live webinars, right? And how successful people were in converting a prospect to a customer through that format. But there's a problem with those. Like, you actually have to be there in order to make it happen. And how often can you be there? And what if you have prospects all over the world? And are you going to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning so that, you can be in a good time slot for your Australian, right? So the complexities involved in doing things live are obvious. And so that's why this pre-recorded evergreen webinars really became so popular. Probably we first started seeing them, around 10 years ago. They were pretty rough at first because we didn't have the technology to support them. But obviously we knew we needed to do something other than live. But we wanted to keep that format because it's just so effective for converting to customer.
Cool. Okay, so we know what a webinar is, and we're kind of seeing then. So what happens next?
Well, so what happens next is we can fast forward to 2019, where we are now, and we do have technologies that enable us to produce and manage these evergreen webinars relatively inexpensively. We have things like Vimeo and YouTube. We have websites. WordPress in particular makes it fairly easy. So we have all of these structures that enable us to get a webinar or get a video or webinar produced and get it online. The challenge then becomes in how do we automate an attendee's experience in such a way that we serve up to them follow-up and information based on actions that they took in real time. That's where the challenge comes in.
Yeah, because otherwise you're just having them watch a video, they got to the end of it and they're done, show them a call to action, but
right.
Can you really take the next step?
Well, the data definitely shows us that when someone commits to a specific date and time and says, I want to view this Saturday morning at 10 a.m., their propensity to show up is much higher than if you provide an open-ended opt-in. For example, the difference between registering to see something Saturday morning at 10 a.m. versus give me your name and email, I'll share this video with you, watch it whenever, right? People tend to respond better to that commitment. That subconscious mind is working on, oh, I've committed to attending at a particular time.
And it's almost like an appointment on your calendar now, right?
It's an appointment on your calendar. That's exactly right. And so that's why this scheduling of something that obviously is pre-recorded works. It works. And so one of the things that we are most concerned about is conversion, right? We always talk about converting lookers into leads, right? That's traffic that comes to your site. What structures do you have there that are compelling that they want to give you that email address or name and email? Leads into customers. This is what the Convert More webinar platform is all about. And then the next phase is customers into repeat buyers. So doing that in a really high quality, effective way is our number one priority as a company.
Okay, and then Convert More, I just meant, so Convert More is the name of the product, right?
Convert More webinars.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Cool. And is it at convertmorewebinars.com?
It is.
What do you know? Okay, cool.
What do you know?
Yeah. Cool. So then tell us, tell me about the features. Mm-hmm. What is it that we can get out of this thing?
Well, this came about because I was managing some evergreen webinars for a client. She was doing pretty well. She had 2 evergreen webinars running, and she was averaging 5 figures a month pretty consistently with these 2 evergreen webinars. So I think most of us can agree that's great, right?
So she had people going to these webinars. They'd go, they'd take the call to action, and they'd buy whatever she was selling, right?
Exactly. And we were managing them through funnels that were set up on Infusionsoft by Keep. And everything was rocking along pretty well, right? We were automating this experience. Then one day the system failed. The system is one that's kind of considered the granddaddy of the evergreen webinar systems. It works pretty well. It's quite reliable. It's very expensive. And then there's a whole separate expense associated with the integration with Infusionsoft. So when we had the fail, that kind of upset her, as you can imagine. It dug into her, her revenue for a few days. And she decided to go with a new system. So we began looking. And what we discovered is there was no system out there for managing evergreen webinars that really worked seamlessly with Infusionsoft. We were going to have to hire someone to write custom script, or the worst thing of all was when we discovered that we didn't have good affiliate tracking. And a lot of her traffic was driven by affiliates. And so that just was a complete deal breaker on all the other options that we saw out there at the time.
Okay, so the setup is I've got affiliates as well as my own traffic sources. They're sending people to the registration for the webinar. People then go attend the webinar at some predetermined time based on a registration. They watch it. Now, there's also issues like I watched it, but then 10 minutes in, I hopped out and I said, well, forget it, I don't have time for this. And they didn't get to the call to action. So you've got to deal with those people differently than the guy who goes all the way to the call to action and sees it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that's what the automation inside of Infusionsoft is designed to do. But the key is you have to have really tight communication between the system that's managing the webinar and Infusionsoft. One of the situations we wound up with, and one of the options that we tried, was there was a delay, George, of sometimes as long as 2 hours before the tag would go on the registrant that said that they logged on or that they viewed the call to action. Well, that's a pretty long delay, right? I should be, if they viewed the call to action, I should know right away so that I can begin following up with them to buy, right? I need to get them while they're hot.
Yeah. Our operators are standing by, but it takes them 2 hours to get to.
Yeah, but the system didn't know because the tag was delayed for all of this period of time. So this is what I sometimes reference as this gappy integration. Yeah, it integrated, but like not very helpfully, right?
Cool. Okay.
So these were some of the problems that we set out to solve when we created Convert More Webinars.
And I'm the host here, so I can mention, Stealth Seminar is like a big one. I've used that one. There's it used to be called Evergreen Webinar, and then it became Webinar, and they got Webinar Jam as their live tool.
Yep.
So those are the tools. And as an outsider, again, I don't have any, I don't have any investment in MaryKay's business, but there are shortcomings, and their interfaces haven't really evolved much. They were like really big, I want to say 5 years ago. And if you log in again, it still looks like what they had that, it might have a couple extra features. But so you guys are jumping in brand spanking new with this requirements, with an understanding of the shortcomings and how do you beat them, right?
Absolutely.
And not even how you beat them, but how you provide an experience that a business owner can rely on, right?
Absolutely. So we wanted it to be both simple and robust. So, you and I are partners, right? And so when we're working with a client, when a client has a business that's large enough to hire someone like ourselves, we're going to get in there and do really fancy things, right? Well, I want it to do this and that. So our objective was to be able to serve the needs of more advanced marketers without leaving folks who maybe have never done this before, who aren't working with partners. We wanted to also give them everything that they need to get up and running quickly.
Right, kind of like a self-service mode, right?
Exactly.
Now, let me ask you, are you open to sharing who else is partnered up with you in this?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are super incredibly fortunate to work with the person who I think is one of the best developers in our space. You know him well, George, and that's David Bullock, who developed the membership plugin Memberium, which actually is where you and I got, I think, to know each other the best was in that particular community, a little side community with Keep Infusionsoft community, and building out these membership sites with that plugin. So I pulled Dave in because who else would I ask, right?
So, and here I really wanted to mention this because, we live and breathe Memberium. It's, I want to say, about 80% of our business in the consulting side. And if David technically is behind something, I want to learn more about it. I worked with him before he was the Memberium guy. And nothing but just excellent code, a lot of common sense. So that when I heard from you talking about this, and David had kind of mentioned something in passing, I go, hold on, is this the same one? So I haven't seen this thing yet, and we're gonna cut this and then have a second episode to kind of demo this. But I'm eager to find out because I'm a potential customer and I'll promote this to other people. But if David is involved, it's definitely worth giving it a review and learning more about it. Not taking anything away from MaryKay, of course.
Well, no, seriously, it would not exist if it wasn't for my frustration and the fact that I have Dave's phone number. So
I got you. So let's do this. Let's hold off. We'll cut this off, and then we'll have a second episode where we'll go through that. If anybody wants to learn a little bit more about this, it's convertmorewebinars.com. Is there an S at the end?
Yes, there is an S at the end.
Convertmorewebinars.com. You'll hear all about it, and we'll also put it in the show notes, okay?
Absolutely.
So thank you, and we'll get back with you in a little bit.
Part 2 is a demo. Fantastic.